Well, good evening to all and welcome to the 11th meeting of the 143rd Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas. Are there any disclosures of interest from any of the members? Seeing none, we'll go to minutes.
I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on February the 13th, 2023 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Baldwin-Sand.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Next.
Council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. First committee this evening is strategic direction and development. First item is a report relating to draft plan of condominium approval for the property at 96 Moore Street. I have a motion that report PD 0223 relating to plan of condominium approval file 34 CDM 21506 and a request to have a condominium description for the same file be exempted from the requirements of the Planning Act, be received for information, and that council approve pursuant to section 9 sub 6 of the Condominium Act, the request to exempt the condominium description for 34 CDM 21506 from the provisions of sections 51, 51.1, and 52 of the Planning Act as amended, as would normally apply to it under subsection 9 sub 2 of the Condominium Act. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters?
Thanks, Worship. I wasn't going to comment on this, but I'd like to know about this phase 4. This is the first time that I've heard of a phase 4, this triangular piece of property that is being considered. I'm assuming this is the parcel that fronts on Wellington Street where the street going into the property should have been. But I'm wondering if Lou can explain what phase 4 is all about and how we could approve a condominium change for a piece of property that has not gone through planning approvals.
Mr. Pompili?
Yes, through you, Mayor, to the councillor's question. Yes, no, it's a good question. The previous condo had the same phasing plan. The area that's identified as phase 4, those are lands that still need some remediation. They are lands that are fronting on Wellington, you're correct, but they will just be vacant land that will be used by the condo at this point. If nothing can be done with those lands without any further planning approvals. So they are just lands that for the most part right now are used for residents to walk their dogs or open space, but it's just identified as a phase that needs to be remediated, whether it is considered for any future approvals. Other than that, that'll be subject to a planning act, a further planning act application.
So follow up on that, then, are we being asked tonight to make condominium changes to phase 4 when nothing has been approved for phase 4?
No, it's just one of the staging plans for this development that was just left in that format. There's no, you're not giving any planning act approvals. You're just changing. Back in December, we had given approval to allow for a phase condo. For whatever reasons, for financing reasons that are the applicant's reasons, they've changed their condo from now a phase condo to a stage condo. To a standard condo. They are building it in phases and stages. And what's identified as phase 4 on that plan is really just a remnant lands that are still in the ownership of the condo, but they're just going to remain as vacant lands at this point.
Further questions? Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. Might as well stay there. I had a couple of questions for you. Well, I'm exactly in the same page as Councillor Peters. Here you're putting phase 4 into something that you want us to approve tonight. And yet, as you just declared, we haven't even talked about phase 4. So why would phase 4 be even in here for us to approve? I don't want to get caught up in 6 months to say, well, we approved phase 4 6 months ago. So I'm just curious, why was it put in? Then I have a follow-up question.
The
Mr.
applicant,
Pumpkin?
yep, through you, Mr. Mayor, the applicant, it looks like the applicant is available. I'm wondering if the applicant might be able to explain their position a little clearer so that council knows what their intent is. I've just relayed what my understanding is.
That would be Michael Lowith for IT. Thank you.
Mr. Lowith, when you're on, let us know. All right, looks like you're
All
on.
right, I'm here. I tried a couple of times, but didn't get any answers. The triangular piece of land on the property is used as a walking area, a dog area. That area of the property was heavily contaminated. There was a foundry at that location at some point in the past. To be able to develop the remainder of the property, the triangular portion was not part of the existing phase one building. It was left as a park or dog walking area. The plan is to keep it that way indefinitely. Due to financing reasons, you can't get financing for any kind of building if there's contaminated grounds at all. So that's why it's separated as a separate phase because it is contaminated. It can't be built on, and a mortgage could not be put on that property.
Okay,
Follow-up question for Lou.
go ahead,
Sorry.
Councilor Herbert.
So the main reason for this change, and if you read through it, there's lots of information, is the reason for it to go to the standard condominium corporation is financial. That was a financial thing for the builder, and there's really no other concern for us except the financial reason, right?
Correct. Like all condos, the switching from the phase condo, the standard condo, it's for financial reasons of the applicant.
So there's
Nothing, everything is consistent. The site plan that's been approved, all the other agreements that are in place with the municipality, they all remain intact. Yeah.
Further questions or comments? Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the owner, the applicant. Just wondering what the timelines are for phase two.
Mr. Lowith, can you fill us in on the answers to phase two?
Yeah, so we're pretty much through the construction drawings for the phase two building. There's still a little bit more to do. We're finalizing the heritage requirements for the phase two portion. We're hoping right now that we're going to be able to have all our drawings ready for June 1st to be submitted to the city and hopefully start construction in July.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Next item relates to an application for temporary removal of part lock control by Performance Communities Realty, Inc. I have a motion that report PD 0423 relating to the application by Performance Communities Realty, Inc. for temporary removal of part lock control for semi-detached and townhouse dwellings on lots 14 to 15, 19 to 22, 24 to 29, 33 to 35, 37 to 39, 44 to 45, 48, 51, 54 to 56, 65 to 66, 69 to 71, 73, 84, and 90 on registered plan 11M 258 be received for information. And further, that the application by Performance Communities Realty, Inc. relating to the passing of a bylaw to temporarily remove part lot control for those semi-detached dwelling and townhouse dwellings on Plan 11M 258 be approved, and further, the council authorize staff to prepare a bylaw pursuant to Section 50 sub 7 of the Planning Act, which provides that Section 50 sub 5 of the Planning Act relating to part lot control does not apply to the semi-detached and townhouse dwellings as noted earlier on registered plan 11M 258. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Councillor Herbert?
Thank you. I'm just curious, I see this as a temporary bylaw and after 4 years it expires. I'm just curious what happens after 4 years to that bylaw.
Mr. Pompili?
Yeah, 3 years, right? It's a good question. No, after 4 years, what often happens, it puts some pressure on the applicant to build within that 4-year period and sell off each part. If they don't, and that's happened, through my experience, there's an opportunity to ask for an extension to that. But otherwise, if it's not done, then each unit cannot be sold separately. So that, but the applicant is confident that the 4 years is ample time to build and sell each unit. And if not, there would be an opportunity for them to apply for a one-time extension.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? Carried.
The next two items relate to notice of a public meeting to take place by Zoom on March the 9th, 2023 at 10 a.m. from the Committee of Adjustment. The first application is minor variance by Prespa Construction Limited to permit a daylight corner setback of 0.78 meters, whereas the minimum required setback is 1.6 meters, a building height of 14 meters, whereas the maximum permitted is 12.5 meters, 30 dwelling units, whereas the maximum permitted is 29 dwelling units, lot coverage of 70%, whereas the maximum permitted is 62%, and a roof area of 75%, whereas the maximum permitted is 62% for a proposed 4-story apartment building at 21 Fairview Avenue. And the second is for an application for consent by Shelley Summers to re-subdivide lots at 111 Ross Street and 157 Wellington Street that inadvertently merged in title. Your worship, if there's no further items from the members under this committee, we'll now move into community engagement and services. First item relates to the 2022 Declaration of Compliance for Valley View Home. I had a motion that report VV 0123 relating to the 2022 Declaration of Compliance at Valley View Home be received for information, and further the council approve the compliance declaration for Valley View Home and authorize staff to forward it to Ontario Health West, and further that a bylaw be prepared to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the Declaration of Compliance. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Macaulay.
Questions or comments? Councillor Baldwin Sands?
Thank you. The night of the budget, I was hoping that Mr. Carroll would be on. I don't see him on tonight, but I did see him on earlier. Is he
I think
still?
He's one of our guests
Oh,
tonight. yes.
there he is. I see him now. Thank you. I was hoping he could update council on the morale of staff at Valley View. We are coming out of, hopefully, on the other side of things. So hopefully, with this new accommodating changes, new levels of compliance, having that ability to connect with Valley View has been not as easy as it has been in the past. So I was hoping that Mr. Carroll would be able to provide an update on the morale of staff and the morale of residents there at Valley View. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor. We'll go to Mr. Carroll. If you can hear us, put yourself off mute so that we can hear you.
Yes, I certainly can hear you, but I'm having problems with my video camera. So I apologize for that.
Well, just hearing your voice is fun, Michael. We don't get to see you or hear you much anymore. So Councillor Baldwin Sands asked you a couple of questions. Could you help her with those?
Yeah, I certainly can. Yes, certainly I think we're all very grateful and happy that it seems that COVID is moving in a different direction, in a direction that is good for our residents and staff at Valley View. We are hoping that many of the precautions that we have in place now, as we move into the spring season, they will be lifted and we will get back into more of a normal functioning period for our home. We are certainly at this point, we have increased resident programming. We are coming together more as a group of people living in community. We are hoping that, as I said, in the next few months, we will certainly do more of that. And we're certainly hoping that come June, if for those members of council who have been there for more than one term, you remember we would have our big annual spring barbecue in June, where residents and families and will come together. We'll get 300 or 400 people out to that. So we are hoping that if the current environment continues, we will be able to offer that to our families and residents again this year. Staff, I think, have certainly come through a difficult time with COVID, but I think that everyone is looking forward to a more opening environment at Valley View, and we're looking forward to increasing our staffing levels as council approved in the budget, thanks to the provincial funding that is coming through. So they're certainly looking forward to that as well. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, then all in favor of the report? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Michael.
Oh, thank you.
Your worship, unless there are any further items from the members under this committee, we'll move to infrastructure and civic operations. At this time, there are no items on the agenda unless there are any items from the members.
Councillor Wookie.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. A constituent contacted me in a very respectful manner, wanted to ask a question of the fire service. So I'm hoping that the chief can answer this for me or address it. The concern was that there was, at a time when buying a fire truck that's very expensive, and the optics of firefighters with a fire truck idling in the fire lane outside a superstore with food. And I just thought this is one of those things that pops up occasionally. I think it's really good to hear from the chief to explain kind of why that happens. And I just want to thank that constituent for getting in touch with me, because they were very respectful and just, and if they're expressing that concern, then I'm guessing that there are lots of other people who would notice the same thing. So Chief, thank you very much. If you could talk about that a bit.
Chief, good to see you here tonight.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Preston, to you, Councillor Wookie. Great question. So there's a couple of things to talk about here. The firefighters going out and getting groceries. They're on 24-hour shifts. This isn't a regular thing, but a lot of times we get shift changes, people that get called in, and there's not enough room for 16 people to put their lunches in a small fridge because we're hampered by room. The reason that there is 4 people on that truck is that's an NFPA standard. It's a 1710 standard. It falls under the requirements for staffing of a fire truck. That fire truck has to have a minimum of 4 people on it. We send 2 people into the grocery store for simple reasons that if they go in, there's a lot of public education going on. Every time they go in, they'll ask questions of fire prevention, same questions of what you just asked, why a truck does this, why do you send a big truck to a medical call? There's all kinds of reasons. We do not break that crew up for simple reasons. If we were to send in, the questions have come, why wouldn't you send a guy just in a pickup truck? Well, that shorts that truck responding to a medical incident, a fire, or any other medical thing. If they're in there, the reason that we leave that truck running would be the worst case scenario. You shut the truck off in that lane and you go to start it and you have an incident and now the truck does not run. That's why at our halls, we have the privilege of having 2 ladder trucks, 2 pumps, rescue, a tanker. If we come out of the hall for whatever call, we jump in that truck and it doesn't run. We have the privilege of having a twin truck to that to jump in. Seat shift is what we call it, to another truck to go out the door. We never have that issue. So if we were to shut that truck off, and with this weather too, you have to keep that truck running to keep the pump heater going so your pump doesn't freeze and your intakes and discharges don't freeze also. So it's just, and we do a lot of public education. When the two firefighters go in, they always get the questions. How often should I change my smoke alarms? How should I do this? Why do you do these things? And it's a public education every time they're in there. So while they're in there, they're answering those great questions from the people in the city of why, when, and how.
Councillor Wookey, go ahead.
Thanks for that, Chief, a great deal. And now, silly question, but realistically, let's say there a call happens and they're in the middle of, you know, the frozen food aisle. What, do they literally just take off out the door, or how does that work?
Through you, Mayor President, back to you, Councillor Wookey. Yeah, absolutely. They run and go. That could happen in any case scenario. We don't always respond from the hall. We'd go off site to do training. We could be at a second call and have to disperse trucks to whatever, be a med call, be a fire call. And we've had those strategically impressed place through our operating guidelines. They all carry radios with them. They'll usually get a standby first. So when the phone rings at the fire hall, they'll get a standby pump 6 or standby ladder 9, whatever truck happens to be at the grocery store. They know that's time to drop stuff and start walking out the door.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other items under that category?
Seeing none, your worship, will now move into corporate governance and administration. First item is the 2022 corporate customer service update. I have a motion that report CC 0123 relating to the 2022 corporate customer service update be received for information. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor McCauley.
Questions or comments on the report? Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I'm a big fan of this customer service department. And I think we need to do, I see Taylor's here, I think we need to do everything we can to continue to promote it. I know when I'm responding to social media requests, I know you're the same, other councillors are the same. I have a quick response, send the email to customerservice@stthomas.ca.
Right.
And I just think that the public, and I think when you look at the success rate of the resolution of so many issues, and I can speak personally for the countless issues that I've put forward. I don't always like the answer, but I would say the vast majority of the time it is the answer that the person that has reached out to me has been looking for. So I just think we need to continue to promote this. And I just want to say thanks to the courteous customer service staff that we have within the clerk's office. They do an outstanding job, and they really do work hard to find the resolution or steer you in the proper direction, because a lot of times people don't understand who does what from each level of government, and the customer service does an admirable job of steering them in the right direction as well too. Thanks, Your Worship.
Well, Councillor Peters, I know you do everything, and my office apparently does everything, but I do the same as you and send them to customer service, so it can actually end up at the department head that actually knows the answer to the question, or someone in a department that knows the answer to the question in a far more fulsome way. But I'll often, as you have said, ask them to attach my name to their customer service request, so I get the answer back too, because it is something I didn't know. And so it lets me get the answer back too and see how quickly it comes back. Further questions or comments? Great. Councillor Herbert, I saw you first because I was looking at you.
Thank you, Worship. The customer service is a great tool for the councillors. I mean, I think when I first came on, people would send emails, you try to respond to them, but no, that's not the way it should work. When you get an email from somebody with a concern, you say, thank you, I'll forward it on to customer service or contact customer service. And if you don't hear anything within 24 hours, then get back to me and I'll see what I can find out. So we don't have to type up a half a page of a response to somebody without even talking to anybody. Customer service has done a great job on it. So, and I think it's a great tool for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wookey.
Thank you very much. Looking at the stats, and the folks at home won't probably, there are some that are, when the customer service request comes in, they get closed or dealt with fairly quickly, a few days. And there are some that take the averages upwards of 30 days to get dealt with. And property standards is one of those dicey areas that sometimes take longer to deal with. And I'm hoping to get, I think, is it Mr. Pompilio or Mr. Pompilio to talk about What's the nature of that? Because some people might expect it to happen next day, but not all issues in customer service are created equally. And a pothole is easier to fill than investigating somebody's trailer on their property, I'm sure. So if Mr. Pompili could talk a little bit about challenges of getting, say, property standards or tied to lot complaints off the books per se. Thank you.
Mr. Pompili?
Yep, thank you for the question. No, you're absolutely correct. Property standards, complaints and many bylaw complaints, untidy lots, can take time to reach a resolution. And each one is unique, each one is different, and each one takes its variable time. Some go on far too long to get resolved. And a lot of it is just because there's different stages of it. A lot of it is providing the notice, providing that background education for the property owner. They may not know that they're in violation to a bylaw. So the first step is often just to inform and educate and make them aware that there is a violation and give them an opportunity to correct it before we issue any notice or any order. And our staff has been very successful in terms of with that approach from my perspective in the short time I've been here. Where we need more tools in order to get a resolution. We have issued notices, have issued orders, and they still continue to get ignored. There are very few like that, but that does happen. And we could use a few more sort of tools in our toolbox, I guess, to help with some of those matters, whether they're property standards, bylaw infractions, untidy lots. You know, the ability to issue fines for noncompliance. Strengthening the language in our bylaw to provide better clarity. It's something that I tasked our new CBO to sort of to look at and to start bringing some recommendations forward so that I can bring some of those ideas to council and maybe we can start looking at ways to give our tools give our staff some tools that they need. Because it can be frustrating on their part too, when they're out there trying to get some of these matters resolved and there's no traction, there's no movement on the part of the offender. But for the most part, I think our staff do an excellent job in terms of trying to work with the applicant to reach a resolution. And that's one of our main goals, is to work with that applicant, inform them fractions and give them an opportunity to correct it.
Thank you, Mr. Pompili. I mean, I only speak on my own behalf, but I'm going to guess my council colleagues would be quite pleased to put more tools in your tool belt to deal with those, because as you say, they can go on for, like, if the average is 30 days, some of those can go on for a very long time and be very frustrating for a very large number of people, and safety issues and all other things. So I'll look forward to hearing back when the new CBO's got that ready. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Clark, you're next.
Thank you. Through you to the city manager. Just wondering, city manager, if staff takes a look at it and makes use of this, the different categories to analyze in terms of strategic priorities for the following year, or as Lou had mentioned, refining our bylaws and things like that, or you know, other categories like that where we make take a deeper dive at these statistics.
City manager?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to the councillor, definitely. I think anytime that we look at trends, we need to look at all those trends and how they impact our service. And certainly that's a discussion I'd have with the clerk as well, because she's ultimately responsible for customer service. So it's part of the priority setting process for her, and then it'll find its way into the broader priorities that we're setting as well.
Thanks, Your Worship. In general, I've had great response from this, and it's the director spoke to one that I'm currently working with. And when we're looking at these length of time, how do we ensure that the communication continues throughout that? Because even though staff is still, because the one issue that we're working on right now, it needs some more tools for the box, but it seemed, because it has been going on for so long, the communication actually stopped. So original complainant thought everything had just been falling off the wayside. And I know it's few and far between where that happens, but just wondering how we ensure for some of these longer ones that that communication continues to flow back to the original complainant.
Mr. Pompili, can you help us with that? Is there after a certain amount of time, we have to respond back to the citizen again, even though it's not yet solved and we know it's on the way to being solved?
Again, to you, Mr. Mayor, to the councilor's question, that's it's a fair question to ask, and it's a complicated one to answer because I know we certainly can do a better job in terms of providing that communication. But we get into some privacy matters in some cases. But I can certainly understand the frustration of the complainant if there's no follow-up. And I'm again going to be looking to staff to sort of come to me with some recommendations in terms of how we can provide that follow-up so that somebody knows one of two things, that there is no violation and there's no further action is going to occur. Or number two, that we are taking steps to have the matter resolved and it's still an ongoing issue. It's fair to request that communication, and it's fair to say that it's fair to have that communication available. We do need to do a better job and find the appropriate mechanism in terms of relaying that information out there. And I hear the question, and it's a fair comment, and it's one that I'll look to, introduce any sort of steps that we can take to provide those answers.
Super. City Manager, do you have a point?
Just really quickly, Your Worship, if I could, through you to the members of council. The other piece that we're doing, and I think it goes back to Councillor's question, is how we're monitoring the kind of information and the kind of questions that are coming forward. So they just don't come through customer service. We know that some of you avail yourselves of other avenues to get information, and we know about those too. And we're actually watching those. We're watching Facebook and groups on Facebook, and we see the issues that come up there. And those often are either customer service issues already, or they're going to become customer service issues. So sometimes we are trying extraordinarily hard to be proactive then in posting, I think to your point, on our own Facebook page or on our website, recognizing that there might be a question in the community and we're saying, oh, people are seeing that, we're going to post about that. So people know that we're giving an answer, not necessarily in the Facebook page where the issue might have been raised, but generally more broadly on the city's social media channels and otherwise.
Thank you. Councillor Herbert?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Basically, it's the same question, Councillor Kohler, but I just need a precise answer. And the planning department's a good place to start with. If you get a complaint on Monday and you say it's going to take 2 weeks to sort it out, do you contact the people and say, look, we've got it within 24 hours, we've got it, but it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to sort out, or do you work on it for 2 weeks? That's to me, that's the communication part that I think people want to know, that their complaints are being heard. They're happy. Oh, it's going to take 3 weeks. Fine. Thank you. Get back to me when you have it. But if you don't contact them at all, I think maybe that's not a great thing. Go ahead.
And to what the city manager mentioned, complaints come in various different forms. If there is that link made to our staff person and the complainant, we will communicate with that applicant. That happens almost on a daily basis in terms of complaints or questions that come up about a potential property standards or bylaw infraction, and there is that communication. But we try to resolve those types of inquiries as quickly as we can and provide that follow-up. The problem often is people don't like the answer that they get. Yeah.
Thank you. Further questions or comments on customer service? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to community grant applications for the month of February 2023. I have a motion that report TR 0423 relating to community grant applications for February 2023 be received for information. And further, the council concur with administration's review of the application received. And further, the council approve the recommended community grant request as outlined in report TR 0423 in the amount of $2,650. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? You remember we asked the treasurer to go back and look at these two, and both have come back forward with recommendations from that department. Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Your worship, unless there are any further items from the members under corporate governance and administration. At this time, council will reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole is recorded in the minutes of this date be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor McCauley.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried.
Next, we move into reports of committees. There are 3 reports from the Municipal Heritage Committee. The first one relates to a heritage alteration permit for the property at 488 Talbot Street. I have a motion that report MHC 0123 relating to the heritage alteration permit for the property at 488 Talbot Street be received for information. And further, the council recommending that council issue a heritage alteration permit for the property at 488 Talbot Street relating to application HAP 0123 subject to the following. That the billboard sign be reduced in size to be in compliance with the city's zoning bylaw 50-88. Moved by Councillor Wookey. Seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments on this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Second item relates to a heritage alteration permit for the property at 406 to 408 Talbot Street. I have motion that report MHC 0223 relating to the heritage alteration permit for the property at 406 to 408 Talbot Street be received for information. And further, that council issue a heritage alteration permit for the property at 406 to 408 Talbot Street relating to application HAP 0223 subject to the following. Consideration be given to match mullion details on the second floor windows. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried.
Last report under reports of committees relates to heritage alteration permit for the property at 364 to 366 Talbot Street. I have a motion that report MHC 0323 relating to the heritage alteration permit for 364 to 366 Talbot Street be received for information. And further, council issue a heritage alteration permit for the properties relating to application HAP 0323 subject to the following. That the upper first floor windows be retained and film signage installed on them instead of aluminum composite panel signs as requested in the application. Moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Wookey.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
We now move into petitions and communications. First item relates to a proclamation and flag raising from Beta Sigma Phi. I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim April 24th to May 1st, 2023 as Beta Sigma Phi Week in the City of St. Thomas. And further, that the Beta Sigma Phi flag be flown at City Hall from April 24th to May 1st, 2023. And further, that a flag raising ceremony be held at City Hall on April 24th, 2023 at 11 a.m. Moved by Councillor Gibson. Seconded by Councillor Wookey.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
A second item under petitions is a letter received from Fresh Start Support Services requesting a grant of $600,000 for the House of Homes project at 118 Center Street. I do have a motion that the letter received from Fresh Start Support Services requesting the grant be referred to the Treasury Department and Social Services Departments for a report. Moved by Councillor McCauley, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Your Worship. I received a request from the Ukrainian community last week after the council agenda had been prepared. Just for the information of council and the public, there's over 30 Ukrainian individuals living in St. Thomas and Elgin County right now. This week, they're planning these families, they meet every Wednesday over at the library, learning English, learning life skills about the community, but they're working really hard to become integrated in the community. This week marks the first anniversary of the invasion of the Ukraine, and those group of individuals is planning on hosting a silent vigil amongst themselves. It's not a public event. And I was asked if we could bring forward a proclamation, and I provided a copy to you and the clerk. I just wanted to change one word in that, Madam Clerk, that it would be Stand with Ukraine Day, not Solidarity with Ukraine Day. And that, as I said, that the 24th February marks the first anniversary of the invasion of the Ukraine. And with the families being here, that I'm hoping that I have prepared a motion to require a seconder that February 24th, 2023 be proclaimed as Stand with Ukraine Day in the city of St. Thomas, and happy to move that. Thanks, Your Worship.
Councillor Baldwin, second. Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. We'll make that proclamation
Thank
on the
you.
24th.
No further items under petitions and communications on the agenda, Your Worship, unless there are any items from the members. Seeing none, we'll move into unfinished business of council. And Your Worship, again, seeing none from the members, we'll move into new business of council.
Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Your Worship. Back to some of the comments earlier about monitoring social media. One of the things that I noted over the weekend, that there was a lot of concern expressed by some people as a result of this train derailment that took place in Ohio, and the plume that came off of it, and groundwater pollution, pollution into streams, et cetera, and potentially into Lake Erie. And I sent a note to the Elgin Area Water Board, who looks after not only looks after our system, but the whole of the Elgin and Lake Huron Board. And my question was, are there any concerns? And Andrew Henry replied back, short answer is no. Train derailment last week was located near the Ohio River, a tributary to the Mississippi River, which drains south and not within the Lake Erie Basin. Notwithstanding, we being the Elgin, Lake Huron and Elgin area water systems, notwithstanding, we continue to monitor raw water quality for a long list of contaminants, but do not anticipate any impacts at this time from the airborne products of the fire. We participate in additional monitoring with the province of Ontario, as well as share data with other water systems in the Lake Erie and Lake Huron basins to ensure we have a wider view of source water quality. So I just wanted to pass that on, that it is on the radar screen of the water boards, and just to hopefully alleviate some concerns. Thanks, Your Worship.
Well, thank you, Councillor, for doing so. I also last week had conversations with both our federal member and provincial member under the environment side, so that they were checking with their departments of environment to ensure that St. Thomas was not also in danger in any way through airborne, waterborne methods. So sounds like we've got a very good look at this, but let's all be aware of it and continue to look at it. And thank you, Councillor, for speaking to the water boards. Councillor Herbert, and then Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thank you, Worship. Last week, Councillor McCauley and myself attended the grand opening of the Crockadoodle down
Yes.
at the West End. And boy, I'll tell you, they put a lot of work into that building. And Noel, I think his name was Joel, and Christine, is it? Anyway, they're really excited. Nicole, they're really excited about it. And if you get a chance to go into the building, It's like you're walking into a Disney World. It's just full of pottery, the bright colors and everything. It's just really a great addition to that end of town. So, and I see they're working on their signage and stuff, and I'm sure they'll be able to work that out under the heritage thing. And it's great to see it anyway for St. Thomas. So anyway, thank you.
Well, and thank you all, whoever also covered for me at the event. It was, thank you. It took two. No, yeah, thank you. I'm anxious to get down there and see what their store looks like. But I'm also quite impressed to see the number of, again, new stores opening on Talbot Street. New buildings that have been empty for a while and taking up really great new businesses. So thank you. Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. Through you to, I was hoping that letter, first of all, thank you for doing that. But second of all, is there any possibility you could forward it to myself as the representative on Kettle with Councillor Herbert and to Councillor Clark or Catfish Creek Conservation Authority so that we can share it with those conservation authorities as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Other business. Councillor Warkey.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but I'll just say a send off to Chief Harridge. He's this Friday is his last
Yes.
day. So good on you, Chief. And I hope you have a lot of pina coladas and get caught in the rain. So thank you so much for your service to the city. And I don't know if you got anything else to say about that, but I've known the chief for a long time and I wish him many, many decades of good health and good fun. Thank you.
This is his week of last, and we will miss him. Right? And thank you for bringing that up too. Excellent. Other items under new business. Seeing nothing, moving on.
We'll now move into bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Kohler, seconded by Councillor.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Clark, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please. Thank you.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 21st day of February, 2023.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next bylaw.
Fix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Indwell Community Homes. This relates to a site plan agreement for the property at 16 Queen Street, 4-story building containing 45 residential dwelling units.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next bylaw, please.
Third and final bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a declaration of compliance. This relates to the long-term care service accountability agreement for Valley View Home.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Rise and report the successful passing of the 3 bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a motion by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Clark, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the 3 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next order of business is public notice. Notice is hereby provided that administration intends to introduce a bylaw at the March 6, 2023 council meeting regarding an amendment of fees or charges with respect to parks and recreation services. Next order of business are notices of motion.
Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, Your Worship. I would like the following motion to be added to the notice of motion for the next council meeting. That the city tree at the northeast corner of Elm Street and Fifth Ave be removed and replaced with a less invasive species.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, we have concluded the items on the open session of the agenda. There is a need to move into closed session. I have motioned that this meeting be closed to deal with the proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land in a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on by or on behalf of the municipality. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Before we vote, again, the same as normal, your streaming of tonight's public meeting will end as we go into closed session. We'll only exit from closed session in order to enter into open session and vote on anything that happened in closed session or to adjourn our meeting and finish for the day. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And so then on the motion to go into closed session, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.